This is Karen with NewClevelandRadio.net, and it is time for Conversation with Comics with No Coffee. And my comic today is Paul Virzi, who is at Hilarities this weekend. But after reading your bio, Paul, you're all over the place. You don't just come to Cleveland. You do a lot of traveling.
Yeah. It's and it's good to be back traveling after everything that happened. But Cleveland is one of the ones that I come to once a year. But it's all over the country. Last year it was all over the world. So it feels good to be back, and it feels good to be telling jokes indoors again. That's everybody's getting creative with how they can do this. I got comics calling me, going, "Hey, you want to?" stand on the back of a truck, or do you want to do a drive-in, or do you want to stand in a field? And pretty soon I thought I was going to be yelling my jokes from an overpass and oncoming traffic, just yelling at cars. So to be inside at Hilarities, they did such a fantastic job with, making it safe and comfortable. Everybody had a great time on the first show last night. So it felt good to be back for sure.
That is wonderful. So what got you started in this crazy world of comedy?
I was young. I was a 21-year-old kid, and I just got the bug. I started doing open mics, and I dropped out of college to do this, and not knowing a pandemic would wipe it away one day. But there's the one thing that could stop this. But no, it was just something that seeing my heroes, Eddie Murphy, and just as a young kid watching it, and just starting to do it. And like I said, I think that this is something. Stand up is not something that you get into to try and say, oh, well, if it works out. You do try just to say, oh, it would be fun. But then if you really do decide to go, which I did, it's definitely it's a life change, and it's something that you got to really work at. There's no shortcuts for sure.
Absolutely. And, so many people want to be comics. They want to be the cut up, whether it be in school or the life of the party. And just because you can make your friends laugh doesn't necessarily mean that you can stand on the stage and make a crowd of strangers laugh.
That's perfect.
So I know you probably did a lot of open mics when you got started. Tell our listeners what an open mic is really like.
Well, first of all, let me just say, Karen, you nailed that. We were actually talking about that last night at the club. You nailed that 100%. For people listening, and us comedians, we always talk about it. Being funny and being a good comedian are two different worlds. My uncle's funny. I got funny uncle. I got funny relatives. I got funny people in my family. But being able to construct a joke and go on stage and perform it and all that thing is a whole other thing. But open mic, for people that getting started, open mic is there's bars and there's clubs that let anybody just anybody walking around that feels like they have something to say or a talent can sign up, and you do 5 minutes. And sometimes, like the first one I did was in Woodstock, New York, at a famous place called Joyous Lake. And Joyous Lake was a bar at Woodstock where the bands like the Rolling Stones and that would practice before doing the actual Woodstock performance. Sure. And so when I did it, it was like poets, it was singers, my first open mic ever was like I was the only comedian. But then there are open mics at comedy clubs that it's all new people, and you do 5 minutes, and you go up there, and you just it's free. You just sign up. You got to be there on time. You sign up, and you go and you do your time, and that's what it is. And it's really something that if you love, you're going to continue to do. It's like a bug. It's like a drug. You're like, oh, I'm going to, or you'll realize, okay, maybe I'll just be the funny guy, at the water cooler, and sure. This is not for me. But I think like with me, I just loved it.
Well, and, I loved when you said, your uncle is funny and you have other funny relatives. I think we all do. Yeah. My mother was known for ruining a joke, which made it funny. Okay. But if she would have stood on stage to do that, nobody probably would have laughed because they would think, this woman is a little nuts. She doesn't know what she's talking about. So, I love it when I'm somewhere and somebody says, "Oh God, you should go to an open mic. You're so funny." And it's like, no, I'm not. I can react to funny things. So,
right.
Where are you from?
I'm from New York.
You're from New York. Well, you sort of.
I'm from New York.
You sort of lost the accent.
Well, I don't know. Yeah, no, I live outside. I live. I don't think I ever had a really full New York. I never really had a full New York accent.
Okay.
I've always kind of been in this outside in the suburbs, so maybe that's why it didn't come on to. And I'll be honest with you, as much as I love my New Yorkers and I'm proud to be a New Yorker, I'm kind of glad that I don't have it that thick.
Okay.
I'm kind of glad. That sometimes that could work against you. So
Yes.
I'm okay.
So, growing up in the great state of New York, it's almost like growing up in California. We assume that everyone in New York is going to make it to Broadway or the jazz areas. And we also think when you're in California, everybody's going to become a movie star. But the reality of it is, like you said, you have to want to do it and put in the hard work.
Yeah. I mean, it's easy to say, you could go to California with all these dreams and aspirations, but then you end up sitting on a couch smoking weed for 3 years and realize you wasted money. You could have done that in Montana.
That's right.
You could have went to you could have went to Wyoming and done that. So I think it all really just comes down to work ethic, and not to sound corny or cliche, but it's like you gotta understand that it's hard, and you gotta just put the work in. It's like anything else. It's like you can go anywhere. I always say to people that want to move or I need a new start. I need to do this. And I always say I had a relative who's like, I'm thinking about moving. And I was like, well, just remember, you could run, but you can't hide because you still got to live with you. So,
exactly.
That's the thing with anything that you do. But I would say that stand up in New York is some of the best in the country and the world. And I think that's just because people are real comedy purists, and if you go out there's a lot of opportunity for great stages and great comedians that will raise your game up.
Right. So when we come to your show this evening, what can we expect? What kind of dialogue are you going to share with your audience?
You could expect a lot of disappointment and anger. No, I think you're going to be very upset that you came. No, I think that if look, I'm just out there to have fun. I'm a very I like to just say what's on my mind. If you're against cancel culture, then come to my show. If you're against people trying to shut you down for saying something, I don't say anything to offend people on purpose, but I talk about everything, and I talk about my family, I talk about my wife, but I'll also say some things right now. There's a lot of stuff. These people, the quote unquote woke and progressive stuff, which I'm all for. That's great, but when it goes too far, that's when I have an issue, and that's really what I'm just talking about everything. I'm talking about trying to raise two young kids in these times, which is a lot different than when I was being raised. But yeah, just out there having fun, talking about it. Listen, it's 2020, and you have to laugh to keep from crying. We got a lot of crazy things going on in our country. So I'm talking about that, but putting light on it. I'm putting light on it, and I'm making it funny. Because what's the alternative? We could all be sitting in a fetal position, crying right now,
Absolutely.
Sucking our thumbs, or or we could go out to a club and be indoors again. And by the way, the food's great, the people are great, the atmosphere is great. So I think you could expect hearing somebody say whatever's on their mind, and put your sensitivity to the side and sit down and laugh it off. I mean, I think that's the best way I could describe it.
That is wonderful. I love that. Put your sensitivity to the side. It is so important to do. especially when you go to a comedy club. And I've shared this with other comics in the past. About 8 years ago, I went through some deep depression and had no idea why. And of course, everybody around me kept saying, well, why do you feel this way? And my husband finally found the cure for me. And that was he started taking me to the comedy club once a week. And every week I would argue with him. I'm not going. I don't want to laugh. And he'd say, too bad, you're going. And within minutes of just being there, even before the show started, something would wash over me because it was like, yeah, I'm here to laugh. I can put all this junk that is bothering me, which I couldn't identify, I put it to a side. And I listened to the jokes and I watched people in the audience. And when there was one, person who just couldn't stop laughing, it became contagious for me. And that was a healing power. And so I think you're right. I think, Hilarities has done everything they can to make the place safe. They're following all the guidelines. And so it's a wonderful place to come and, put things aside, laugh, have some good food, and enjoy an evening out. But,
listen, don't come to my show because I don't want to make you spiral back into that darkness. So, no, it's funny that you say that because in 2016, I fell into an unbelievably horrible depression. I know that you're interviewing a comedian right now, so we're not trying to make your listeners go, man, but no, listen, we all go through it, and I went through it too, and, and then coming out of it and going back to doing it. And, one thing that I do want to say that I think is important today. And for some weird reason, Karen, and this is the truth, for some weird reason, I always was getting booked on 9/11. And to make people laugh on this day, for me, to make people laugh, it was so weird because after the horrible tragedy that happened, in my city and in our country and the world, people, and you see all the things out there, never forget, you see the buildings and you see all the horrible things. But for some reason, every year after, I would just remember being in the city and I'd be like, wow, it's 9/11. And the crowds were always great. And then I started to say, it means a lot to me to be on stage and I didn't even plan to say this on the show. I'm just, now that I'm thinking about it and we're talking and we're having a good conversation, I'm like, let me bring that up. But yeah, it's like, I never realized how many times I've been up on 9/11 and also how great it makes me feel to make people, to watch somebody in the crowd laugh. Because listen, if you can't laugh at shit, like if you can't laugh now with everything going on and, then what are you coming out for? And then I look at it like when you do look at something like 9/11, put into perspective, like, are you really going to be like sensitive or upset about what somebody says, or are you going to sit down, shut up with a drink and laugh at everything and realize that things aren't that important and you look at what did happen? So for me to be on stage, especially tonight, during this weekend on 9/11, making people laugh is very special to me.
That is wonderful. We have, like I've been watching on Facebook and Twitter, yes, we don't want to forget what happened 19 years ago, but at the same time, we can't spend every waking hour on 9/11 each year, feeling the doom and gloom. What we have to look at is how can we make our world much better than it ever was. And, laughter is going to help that because it's going to get those endorphins going and, we'll be able to do good things. But you mentioned you have 2 kids, so we're going through a pandemic. You're back out on the road. What's it been like for you and your family during the shutdown, especially in New York?
Well, it's been fantastic just leaving the house and leaving my wife with the kids and letting her deal with it. So the fact that I'm in a hotel room and she's dealing with that nightmare, especially with them back at school, is fantastic. No, what I think is we really came together as a family, I think, and we were always in good shape as a family. And me and my wife's marriage was in good shape before this, but this just kind of strengthened the glue. And we all got COVID-19. Me and my whole family got the virus very, very, very early, like right when right when it came out, we all had a touch of it. And, you know, we obviously, we quarantined together. We went through that together. We talked to the doctors and all that stuff together. And then we got better at the beginning of April. And, it's been really cool. I mean, now that they're back at school and things are kind of normal, but yeah, it was nice to like sit down and actually hang out with your family. You know, a lot of times it's funny, Karen, because we're almost running from our home,
right,
in life. It's right. Like everybody in life is like running from their home base, which is like the most important. It's like, oh, I got to go do this. I'm going to go to the store, and then I got to go to bed because I got work. Okay, then and then all of a sudden the pandemic happened, and you're sitting and you're playing cards with your family, and you're realizing like, where was I going?
Yeah.
Like, what am I doing? Like, what am I doing? Like, this is what it is. So, it was nice for that. It was nice for my kids to not see me, going to the airport again. And listen, they're very supportive, and I do a good job of balancing it. I'll go down to New York City half the month and then go on the road a couple of weekends. So I'm with them a ton because I've learned that balance. But no, man, hanging out with an 11-year-old and an 8-year-old is the coolest thing ever. As like a grown man, I'm playing video games, I'm playing cards, I'm drawing with my daughter. I'm like a big toddler now, and it's been fantastic.
Well, I feel sorry for your wife if you are a big toddler, because that means she has 3 children. So,
she always says she does.
Yeah,
so.
I totally get it. Well, tonight you have 2 shows at 7 and 9:15, and tomorrow night the same. I want to encourage everybody who's listening, get out. It's time to go see Paul in action. And we're just so glad that you're here and you're going to make us smile on 9/11.
Absolutely, come out and it's going to be a good time. And if you're just for, if you're, like I said, if you're against the cancel culture and you put your sensitivity and any kind of stupid, well, I didn't really like that. If you put that away and you just come out and you enjoy jokes and everything, on especially this day, it's going to be a great time. And the other comics on the show are fantastic. John and Jimmy, they're opening the show, and the club did a great job. So come down, and you'll have a great time.
Well,
I appreciate you having me too.
Absolutely, we hope to meet you this weekend when we come down. So, best of luck, and say hi to your wife and kids for us too. Okay.
Will do. Thanks, Karen. Talk to you soon.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
All right, bye.